In a moment, I'll be joined by the Shadow Finance Minister Jane Hume. But to get us there, Sky's Chief Election Analyst Tom Connell breaks down where the Dunkley by-election was won and lost.
The Liberal Party's achieved a swing, but it's not going to be able to get the seat of Dunkley. It's a Labor retain. How have they done that? Mainly through hanging on in terms of their primary vote. Let's take a look first of all at a booth level. There was early hope in the night, for example, when Mount Eliza North and a couple of booths came in. The Liberal Party were on for a big swing. Look at this, 13% just on their swing to primary, and Labor well down there. Two-party preferred. This was more than they needed, nearly 10%, but Labor held up crucially in some of those typical Labor parts of this booth. Let's take a look at Carrum Downs. A lot has been spoken about Carrum Downs, for example, as being typical of some of the outer suburbs around the rest of the nation. So Labor wanted to do well, and here they held on. Look at their primary, holding up, going up in fact, and staying at 44%. Liberal Party going up, but that was from a pretty low bar there. When we saw this, it was a swing towards the Liberal Party, but nowhere near enough in terms of needing to average 6.3%. So when we get to the seat overall, you can see the vote has gone up for the Liberal Party, 6.8%, but they were largely replacing United Australia Party and One Nation, which were not running. So a decent result, but they needed a 4 in front of it to be competitive. And crucially for Labor, its vote held up, its primary holding up, and it needed to because the Greens were down, not helping Labor out as much when it came to the two-party preferred. At the moment, it's a swing nearing 4%. It could get closer to that and perhaps go past with postal votes, most of them still to come in. As we stand though, what will that swing actually mean? These are some of the seats. If this swing is replicated, the Liberal Party will be targeting at the next election. We're talking about regional and outer suburban seats with a margin lower there of 4%. Perhaps they get a little bit more ambitious if they think they can do better than tonight's result. But Labor will be happy enough that it has managed to retain this seat. It's done so by hanging on by about, we think, 2%. Regardless, Jodie Ballier is the new member for Dunkley.
All right, well, joining me now at the desk is the Shadow Finance Minister Jane Hume. Jane Hume, are you disappointed this morning?
No, quite the opposite. I think the Liberals have their tails up this morning. You know, Dunkley was not a marginal seat. 6.3% isn't marginal in anyone's language, but this morning it definitely is a marginal seat. In fact, it's one of the most marginal seats in Victoria. It was a really good campaign. We had a fantastic candidate. We left nothing on the field. We had all of our volunteers out there, and it was a really good feeling in the room last night. So I think the Liberals should be proud, and they should be really optimistic about our chances at the next election.
Well, just on that though, the government's had its troubles, hasn't it? And is 4% enough to say we can win the next election?
Well, the government has its troubles, but its troubles are of its own making, and I think that really became really clear last night. What I was really pleased to see was that the primary vote for the Liberal Party increased. In fact, it was the best primary vote that we'd seen in about a decade in Dunkley, and it was the best TPP, two-party preferred vote, that we'd seen since about 2016, so since before the redistribution that saw us lose Dunkley. So this is a very positive result for us. Now, I want to make sure that we don't overcook it here. There's work to be done, but at this stage in the electoral cycle, I think that we can take this as a very positive sign.
Can Peter Dutton win seats in Victoria then?
Well, I actually thought that Peter Dutton was really well received in Dunkley. He was down there about 5 times at least. And,
why didn't he come yesterday?
Well, he was down there about 5 times. It wasn't about Peter Dutton though, was it? It was about the people of Dunkley, and it was about Nathan Conroy, who was, a genuine local, married a local girl, great migrant story, and he'd already demonstrated that he was committed to community service in his role as well.
Labor are going to point towards the fact he didn't come on the last day and Albanese was here. So what's your response to that?
Labor can point to anything that they like. If I were Labor, I'd be looking towards some of those seats that have really tight margins already, and being a little bit more worried about what's going on in their own backyard rather than what's going on in the Liberals.
Does this show the government's stage 3 gamble was worth it? The broken promise was worth it for them?
I didn't actually get a lot of feedback on that in the booths. I would have actually thought that if this gamble had paid off, you would have seen their primary vote go up a little bit more, and we didn't really see that. I think it was you, actually, that said that this was going to be a slow burn, that people, of course, they'll pocket the extra $15 a week. Of course they're going to. It's a cost of living crisis, and these were areas where people were really doing it tough. But will they thank you for the lie in the long term? I don't know. I mean, it was a pretty low price to pay to sell off your integrity.
What strikes me, the government's going to whack you with two things, or you're going to be whacked with two things. Not all of it's the government. One is potential rate cuts at the end of the year, and the other is a big cost of living package in the budget. Do you think that could set your political prospects back, any of that?
Yeah, look, a lot of people, as we were saying, are really feeling the pinch. Real disposable incomes have come back a long way in the last 18 months. If you're on a $100,000 salary, your real disposable income has dropped around $8,000. Now, that's not coming back, even if inflation does slow down. We all want to see inflation come back to band. But the problem is it's staying higher for longer because of the decisions that this government is making. If inflation stays higher for longer, then interest rates stay higher for longer. And interest rates, particularly in a place like Dunkley, which is a big mortgage belt, are a real problem down there. So, I actually think that even if things, the statistics improve, that doesn't necessarily mean that prices are coming down. Prices are still up way too high.
Do you think when it comes to election time, you'll pledge to get rid of the 37-cent rate of tax?
Well, we made it pretty clear now that the stage 3 tax cuts, as originally legislated, have been junked. This was genuine reform. Getting rid of that entire tax bracket was a significant change to our tax system, and clearly the Labor government have no appetite for genuine reform of the personal income tax system. So, unfortunately, it cannot go ahead the way it was originally legislated. We are committed to lower and simpler and fairer taxes. We are committed to addressing bracket creep. Can we do it in the same way? No, we literally cannot, because they were due to start on the 1st of July 2024. But we will go to the next election with a tax package that is in keeping with the principles of the stage 3
What about
tax
indexing tax brackets? Do you think that's doable?
Well, I don't think that there's an enormous appetite to index tax brackets right now. But what I will say is that I can commit that we will go to the next election with a tax package that delivers lower and simpler and fairer taxes, because that is the only way that we're going to be able to inject that aspiration back into the economy. And let's face it, economic growth is essentially at a standstill. Productivity is going backwards. We have sucked the aspiration out of our society and out of our economy. That's a failure of this government, and it's something that the Liberals won't abide by.
All right. The other thing is you can be caught on the hop later this year if the economic circumstances go the government's way in terms of an early election. So when does the policy rollout happen for you guys? Is it Peter Dutton's budget reply speech where we start seeing a lot of policy?
Well, I would love to be able to announce all of our policies right here, right now on Sunday morning agenda with you, Andrew, but unfortunately I won't be doing that. Look, the policy process is well underway and has been for some time through Shadow Cabinet and Shadow ERC, as you would imagine. It's a pretty organised process. I'll watch this space.
But should we watch budget reply speech more than other budget reply
You should always watch the budget reply speech. It's a very important speech.
All right. Does this nuclear energy policy risk almost everything for the coalition if Labor launches a scare campaign around it?
Well, I mean, I think Labor are pretty good at organising scare campaigns. We've seen that many times before. But, quite frankly, what they've done with their energy policy is put, ideology ahead of price. People are paying way too much for their electricity bills, way too much for their gas bills. Cheap and affordable energy has been, one of the foundations of particularly my state of Victoria's economic prosperity for decades. That's been cast aside. At some stage, if we're going to reach net zero emissions, we're going to need to do so in a way that ordinary Australians can afford. Nuclear energy is one option. We're not saying it's the only option, but why would you not consider it as part of your energy mix? It seems nothing but ideological belligerence not to.